Remembering Ernie Kurtz by Bob K. Catholic priests are not among those who one would expect to find heading a list of crusaders for the free thinker movement in Alcoholics Anonymous. Nonetheless, Ernest Kurtz, ordained to the Roman Catholic priesthood in 1961, was a dear friend of AA Agnostica, an enthusiastic proponent of the work being done there and of the gate-widening cause in general. His passing as the result of pancreatic cancer on January 19, 2015, touched our hearts. Chapter Kurtz 101. Ernie Kurtz, September 9, 1935 to January 19, 2015, was born in Rochester, New York. He was 3 months younger than AA. Ordained to the priesthood in 1961, he ran a parish for 5 years before going to Harvard, where he obtained a master's degree in philosophy and ultimately a Ph.D. in the history of American civilization. His 1978 doctoral dissertation was published the following year as Not God, A History of Alcoholics Anonymous. The book remains the definitive account of the original 12-step organization. Sadly, many AA members have never seen the book, as it is not conference-approved literature and is almost never found on a group's table of books and brochures. Not God, which I would argue should be read by every AA member, sold only 65,000 copies in its first 35 years in print. As Roger C. once said to me, if you want a book that sells, don't put agnostic or history in the title. Alcoholics Anonymous was, in the 1970s, in the process of compiling archives in its New York City headquarters. Through relentless urging, Ernie Kurtz, Harvard Ph.D. candidate and one-time resident of Guest House, the Rehabilitation Center for Catholic Clergy, was eventually granted full access to these previously unexamined records. Not God was the result. Ernie left the priesthood in the late 1970s to pursue an academic career that took him to the universities of Georgia, Michigan, and Chicago, Loyola, and also Rutgers School of Alcohol Studies. While teaching at the University of Georgia, Ernie met and married Linda Ferris, the love of his life. Dr. Kurtz was an old-school interdisciplinary scholar whose work touched the areas of philosophy, theology, and psychology, as well as history. His other writings include The Spirituality of Imperfection, Storytelling in the Search for Meaning, and a 2014 sequel, Experiencing Spirituality, Finding Meaning Through Storytelling. Both of these books were co-authored with Catherine Ketchum, who recalled being asked at the first interview, "Can you work with someone who gets crabby? I get crabby." Ketchum later confirmed, "He was crabby. He was brilliant, and I loved him more than I could put into words." There was clearly some perfectionism in the imperfection co-author. Ernie was not without insight into his own peccadillos, and uttered a memorable self-deprecating line in 1996. History and imperfection are my specialties, not necessarily in that order. The Collected Kurtz is an anthology of 12 academic papers and speeches on a variety of topics, all diligently researched and written with a superb clarity of expression. Chapter 3, Bill W. Takes LSD, is the consummate exposition on this controversial matter. If perfection is your goal, don't go looking for models among the members or even the founders of Alcoholics Anonymous, page 49. Shame and Guilt is a booklet, a long essay but deeply perceptive. The should of shame arises from within, from the nature of the human as essentially limited yet craving infinity, page 35. Chapter Agnostica. Ernie Kurtz was ever mindful of the many paths to recovery and was a great supporter of the Agnostic AA movement. From time to time, he would post comments on essays that appeared on aaagnostica.org. He was effusive in praising the writings of two particularly hard-assed atheists, Roger C. and Joe C., not related. Their various writings drew Kurtz paeans I would die for. In some pathetic quest for self-esteem, one day I was scoping out the comments section on a piece I had written about Charles Towns, and there it was, the golden ticket, an Ernie Kurtz comment. Unfortunately, there was no song of praise. He schooled me for some shoddy sentence structure which rendered one of my brilliant points less than crystal clear. As I scattered and bopped through some lame excuses, something occurred to me, and I wrote, "Oh my God, I'm talking with Ernest freaking Kurtz." The 1-month suspension from Head Heathen for writing, "Oh my God," was worth it. Ernie liked that, and I continued to call him Ernie freaking Kurtz. He later remarked that a sense of humor was a sign of good recovery. He may have been making amends later when, in an act of exceptional grace, he agreed to write, with Bill White, a foreword for my own little amateurish history book. That foreword contains some classic Kurtz philosophy. Story and storytelling lie at the very heart of Alcoholics Anonymous. AA's basic text and voices within meetings across the globe disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we are like now. From the catalytic meeting between the two desperate men in the mid-1930s to today's growing varieties of AA experience, the history of AA is a story about stories and the healing power of mutual storytelling. Anyone wishing to truly understand AA must look first, not to ideas, techniques, or studies, but to stories. On the anniversary of his passing, I feel especially sad for his gracious widow Linda, and for his dear friend and colleague, Bill White. Turning over the coin, I marvel at his brilliant legacy, and I treasure my own small foray into this exceptional man's world. After all, folks, he was Ernie freaking Kurtz. The original print version of this story, Remembering Ernie Kurtz by Bob K., may be found on the website aabeyondbelief.com in the AA History section, dated January 19, 2016. This audio presentation was produced on January 25th, 2017. This and many more podcasts and articles may be found on our YouTube site or SoundCloud. Just search for AA Beyond Belief.